What if the story you thought you knew was only half the truth? The rise of Maude and the powerhouse behind it, Bea Arthur, looked like a groundbreaking victory for television. But beneath the applause and Emmy trophies was a storm no audience ever saw. This wasn't just a sitcom, it was a battlefield, with clashing egos, bruised friendships, and controversies that nearly tore the show apart. Today, we're peeling back the curtain on the fractures, the grudges, and the silent battles that defined Bea Arthur's career. Stay close, because the legend of Maude hides secrets far darker than you imagined. Long before Maude exploded onto television, Bea Arthur had already made herself impossible to ignore. Born Bernice Frankel, she towered not just in height but in presence. On Broadway, her voice was commanding, her timing razor-sharp. She wasn't simply another actress, she was a force who demanded attention. Norman Lear, already shaking up TV with All in the Family, noticed something rare in Bea, an unapologetic confidence that television had never dared to showcase in prime time. But here's the twist. Bea wasn't chasing TV. She considered herself a stage actress, above the grind of weekly sitcoms. Insiders whispered she was reluctant, afraid television might trap her in a single box. Lear had to push hard, promising Bea more than just a paycheck. He promised influence. She wouldn't just read lines, she would shape them. And that's where the first seeds of conflict were planted. Because when you give an actress with Bea's fire both the lead role and a say in creative direction, you don't just get a show, you get a revolution. And revolutions, while powerful, always come with casualties. What no one realized then was just how costly this gamble would become. In 1971, Bea Arthur first appeared on All in the Family as Maude Findlay, Edith Bunker's outspoken cousin. Within minutes, she stole the spotlight from Archie Bunker himself. Audiences were hooked, demanding more of this sharp-tongued, fearless woman. Norman Lear knew he had lightning in a bottle, and by 1972, Maude was born. The pilot was a smash. Critics raved, viewers tuned in by the millions, and Bea Arthur's face was suddenly everywhere. But behind the curtain, the excitement came with hesitation. Bea had made it clear, if she was committing, Maude couldn't be fluff. It had to matter. That insistence thrilled Lear but unnerved CBS executives. Television at the time played it safe. Family comedies were predictable, gentle, unthreatening. Bea wanted none of that. She wanted Maude to be bold, biting, political, and CBS, desperate for ratings but wary of controversy, reluctantly agreed. The gamble paid off instantly. Maude wasn't just another sitcom, it detonated like a bomb in living rooms across America. Yet the very elements that made it successful would also create cracks within the cast and crew, because for every fan applauding Bea's fire, there was someone behind the scenes feeling burned. Audiences saw laughter, applause, and groundbreaking storylines, but inside the studio, Maude wasn't always a joyous place to work. Bea Arthur carried herself with the intensity of a Broadway star, approaching sitcom scripts like Shakespeare. She expected precision, discipline, and total commitment. For some castmates, it was inspiring. For others, it was suffocating. Adrienne Barbeau, playing Maude's daughter Carol, often described Bea as both mentor and storm. She admired Bea's brilliance, but privately admitted the atmosphere could be tense. Bill Macy, who played Maude's husband Walter, sometimes clashed with Bea's seriousness. He leaned on comedic rhythm, she demanded dramatic weight. Sparks were inevitable. Crew members whispered that Bea's glares could freeze a room. If a line was flubbed, rehearsals halted. If a script softened its message, Bea pushed back hard. She wasn't there to play nice, she was there to make a point. The pressure trickled down. Writers struggled to balance entertainment with politics. Network executives hovered nervously, terrified of offending sponsors, and cast members, they often found themselves walking on eggshells around their volcanic lead. What fans never knew is that the real drama wasn't always on screen. Sometimes the biggest battles started the moment the cameras stopped rolling. By the early 70s, American television avoided hot-button issues, but Maude didn't just poke the bear, it set it on fire. The show tackled alcoholism, depression, women's rights, interracial marriage, and most infamously, abortion. In a 1972 two-part episode, Maude decides to terminate a pregnancy. Viewers were stunned. Phone lines at CBS lit up with furious calls. Letters flooded in, some praising the courage, many demanding cancellation. The episode became one of TV's most controversial moments, sparking national debates that still echo today. For Bea Arthur, this was the point. She believed comedy should challenge ignorance, not hide from it. But not everyone agreed. Sponsors panicked, executives demanded restraint, and some cast members worried their careers might be tainted by association. Adrienne Barbeau hinted years later that the tension was heavy, lines blurred between playing roles and living the battles they portrayed. Bea, however, refused to bend. Colleagues remembered her as forceful in production meetings, fighting to keep scripts intact. She wasn't just playing Maude, she embodied her. And while audiences argued from their couches, on set the pressure was boiling. The controversy that made Maude iconic was also creating divides too deep to hide, and soon those divides would turn personal. If Maude was a groundbreaking stage, behind it was a minefield of rivalries. Adrienne Barbeau adored Bea but often found herself in delicate positions, balancing loyalty with cast frustrations. Insiders whispered she became the confidant for others when Bea's intensity became overwhelming. She wasn't stirring the pot, she was absorbing it, but that role put her in the line of fire. Bill Macy, meanwhile, clashed with Bea over performance styles. His comedic looseness didn't mesh with her dramatic rigor, and their off-screen tensions sometimes mirrored their on-screen marriage. Rumors spread of heated rehearsals, icy silences, and Macy storming off set. Then came Rue McClanahan, cast later as Maude's friend Vivian. Audiences loved the chemistry, but insiders noted Rue's lighthearted approach often clashed with Bea's sternness. Their differences stayed professional, but the chill lingered. The fractures deepened as careers evolved. Adrienne began branching into films, sparking whispers of Bea's resentment. Rue, meanwhile, would later collide with Bea again, this time on The Golden Girls, where tensions with Betty White turned legendary. For now, though, the Maude set had become a powder keg. Respect mixed with resentment, admiration with fear, and every rehearsal carried the risk of an explosion. By 1978, Maude was still a success. Ratings were solid, critics respected it, and its cultural footprint was undeniable, which is why fans were blindsided when Bea Arthur walked away. Officially, Bea claimed exhaustion. After 6 demanding seasons, she wanted out. But insiders whispered another story. The scripts were being watered down, the network pulling back from controversial topics. To Bea, it felt like betrayal. Staying would mean selling out the very principles she fought for. Meanwhile, tensions within the cast were impossible to ignore. Barbeau was chasing new opportunities. Macy was tired of playing Walter. Rue wanted lighter material. The glue that once bound the cast together was cracking, and Bea, with her unyielding standards, stood at the center of it all. Norman Lear even tried to keep the character alive, reimagining Maude as a congresswoman in Washington. Scripts were drafted, but Bea flatly refused. She wouldn't let Maude become a diluted political caricature. Just like that, the revolution ended. Not with a finale fans deserved, but with Bea slamming the door shut. For audiences, it was shocking. For the cast, it was almost a relief. The pressure, the politics, the battles, finally over. Or so they thought. Maude may have ended, but its scars didn't fade. Bea Arthur carried both glory and baggage into her next chapter. Cast members, when asked about those days, spoke carefully. Adrienne Barbeau praised Bea but dodged direct mentions of conflict. Rue McClanahan, in her memoir, chose sharper words. Brilliant but difficult. 2 words that captured the truth no one dared say outright. The shadow of Maude followed Bea into The Golden Girls. The familiar pattern repeated, chemistry on screen, tension off it. Bea's intensity clashed with Betty White's bubbly style. Rue again found herself caught in the middle. What began on Maude was playing out all over again, this time under brighter lights. For Bea, the label of difficult became permanent. Some saw it as a curse, others as the price of uncompromising brilliance. She pushed projects to greatness, but often left bruises behind. The legacy of Maude isn't just its bold scripts or cultural milestones. It's the fractures left in its wake, the silences, the cautious interviews, the whispers of castmates who lived through the storm. Because when you stand that close to fire, you don't leave without burns, and Bea Arthur's flame burned hotter than most could bear. In the end, Maude wasn't just a sitcom. It was a battlefield disguised as comedy, where one woman's determination to speak truth reshaped television and reshaped everyone around her. Bea Arthur demanded more than laughs. She demanded meaning, weight, and courage in every episode. That made her unforgettable, but it also made her polarizing. Her co-stars respected her but feared her. Executives admired her but tried to control her. Audiences adored her, but often recoiled at the controversy she ignited. And when Bea finally walked away, she left behind not just a role but a complicated legacy, one marked by brilliance and by fractures no one fully admitted. That's the hidden cost of breaking barriers. For every door Maude opened, there was a personal toll paid in silence, distance, and unspoken resentment. The show changed television forever, but it also scarred the people who brought it to life. And maybe that's why the full truth has never been told. Not because it wasn't there, but because it was too heavy to carry into the open. The legend of Maude lives on, not just in reruns, but in the shadows of what we'll never fully know.